The rain was coming down hard that night. I was working the late shift at the mountain lodge, basically just killing time until my shift ended at midnight. It was one of those quiet October evenings where most people had enough sense to stay home. The lodge was empty except for old Mr. Peterson in room 12, who came up here every year to fish. I was half asleep at the front desk when the door swung open. A woman walked in, soaking wet, pulling a small suitcase behind her. Her hair was dripping, and she looked exhausted, but there was something about the way she carried herself that made me sit up straight. She wasn't panicked or upset. She just looked determined. "I need a room," she said, walking straight up to the counter. "No hello, no small talk, just business." "Sure thing," I replied, pulling up the reservation system on the old computer. "We've got plenty available. How many nights?" "1 week, maybe 2. I'll let you know." She pulled out her wallet and placed a credit card on the counter. That's when I noticed her hands were shaking a little, not from the cold, but from something else. Nerves? Maybe. Or adrenaline. I started the check-in process, typing in her information. "Looks like we have several options. We've got rooms with 2 beds, or if you prefer, we have some single queen rooms that are a bit cozier." She looked at me for a moment, and I couldn't quite read her expression. Then she said something I definitely wasn't expecting. "Give me whatever you have. 1 bed is fine. No rules, just peace and quiet." I blinked. "Sorry, what was that last part?" "1 bed, no rules," she repeated, this time with a slight smile. "I just need a place where nobody asks questions and nobody bothers me. That's all." Now, I'd worked at this lodge for 3 years, and I'd seen all kinds of guests. Honeymooners, families on vacation, business people looking for a quiet place to work, but something about this felt different. She wasn't running towards something, she was running away from something. "Look," I said carefully, "I'm not trying to pry, but are you okay? Do you need me to call someone?" She shook her head quickly. "I'm fine. I promise. I just need a break from my life for a bit. You ever feel like that?" I thought about my own situation. Working 2 jobs to help my mom with her bills. Barely sleeping. Wondering if I'd ever get out of this small town. Yeah. I knew exactly what she meant. More often than I'd like to admit, I said honestly. She relaxed a little at that. "Then you understand. Sometimes you just need to disappear for a while." I processed her payment and handed her the room key. "Room 7, 2nd floor, great view of the mountains. There's a kitchenette in there, and the cafe downstairs opens at 6 if you want breakfast. Anything else you need?" "Just one thing," she said, picking up her key. "If anyone comes asking about me, you never saw me. Can you do that?" My stomach did a little flip. This was getting weird. But something in her eyes made me want to help her. She didn't look dangerous. She looked scared, and I'd been scared enough times in my life to recognize it in someone else. "Depends on who's asking," I said. "If it's the police, I can't lie. But if it's just regular people? I'm terrible with faces. Can barely remember anyone." She smiled for real this time. "Thank you. Really." She headed toward the stairs, and I thought that would be the end of it. Just another guest with a story I'd never know. But then she stopped halfway up the staircase and turned back. "Hey, what time do you get off work?" "Midnight. About 2 hours from now. The cafe downstairs. Does it have decent coffee?" "It's not fancy, but it's hot and strong." "Good. I'll be down here at midnight. You look like you could use someone to talk to." And honestly, so could I. Before I could respond, she was gone, disappeared up the stairs with her little suitcase. I sat there for a moment, completely confused. What just happened? This woman walks in out of nowhere, makes cryptic comments about no rules and not being found, and then asks me to have coffee with her? My logical brain was screaming that this was a bad idea. She could be in trouble. She could be bringing trouble with her. But there was another part of me, the part that had been stuck in the same routine for years, that was curious. When was the last time something unexpected happened in my life? When was the last time someone looked at me and saw a person worth talking to, not just the guy behind the counter? The next 2 hours crawled by. I tried to focus on paperwork, on checking the weather forecast, on anything to distract myself. But my mind kept wandering back to room 7. Who was she? What was she running from? And why did she want to talk to me of all people? At exactly midnight, I locked up the front desk and headed to the cafe. She was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. She'd changed into dry clothes, jeans and a simple sweater, and her hair was pulled back. She looked like a completely different person, younger, less guarded. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, as I slid into the booth across from her. "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "But I figured, why not? It's not like I have anywhere else to be." She pushed one of the coffee cups toward me. "I'm sorry for being weird earlier. I know I probably seemed crazy." "A little," I agreed. "But I've seen crazier. Last month we had a guy who insisted his room was haunted and demanded we perform an exorcism." She laughed, and the sound filled the empty cafe. "Did you?" We switched his room and told him the new one had been blessed. He was happy after that. We talked for hours that night. Not about why she was there or what she was running from, just normal stuff. She asked about the town, about what it was like growing up here, about my family. I asked about her favorite books, her taste in music, where she'd traveled. It was easy. Natural. Like talking to an old friend. Around 3 in the morning, she finally stood up to leave. "Thank you for this," she said. "I really needed it." "Anytime," I replied, and I meant it. As she walked away, she turned back one more time. "By the way, tomorrow might get complicated. Just so you know." And with that mysterious warning, she disappeared back to her room, leaving me with a dozen new questions and the strangest feeling that my quiet, boring life was about to change completely. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing like crazy. 6 missed calls from the lodge. And it wasn't even 7 yet. My heart sank. Something was wrong. I called back immediately. David, the morning shift guy, picked up on the first ring. "Dude, where are you? There are 2 people here asking about a guest, and they're not happy that I can't help them." "What people?" I asked, already pulling on my jeans. "They say they're looking for their daughter." Showed me a photo. "It's the woman who checked in last night, the one you helped." My stomach dropped. "Tell them I'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't tell them anything." I made it to the lodge in 12 minutes. When I walked in, I immediately spotted them. A man and woman, both dressed like they'd just stepped out of a business magazine. Expensive suits, perfectly styled hair, the kind of people who weren't used to hearing the word no. "You're the night clerk?" the man asked, stepping toward me before I even reached the desk. "I am. How can I help you?" "Our daughter checked in here last night. We need to know what room she's in." He said it like it was a fact, not a request. "I'm sorry, but I can't give out guest information. It's our policy to protect everyone's privacy." Forward by. "I'm sorry, policy to protect everyone's privacy." The woman stepped forward, and I could see the worry in her eyes. Real worry, not just annoyance. "Please. Her name is Katie. She's our only child, and she left without telling us where she was going. We're not trying to cause problems. We just want to make sure she's safe." That made it harder. I could see they genuinely cared, but I'd made a promise. "If you give me your contact information, I can pass it along to her and let her decide if she wants to reach out." "That's not good enough," the father said, his voice getting harder. "She's not thinking clearly right now. We need to talk to her." "I understand, but my hands are tied. I can't violate a guest's privacy, even for family." We went back and forth for another 10 minutes. They offered me money. They threatened to call their lawyer. They tried sympathy. Nothing worked because I kept thinking about Katie's face when she asked me not to tell anyone. That fear in her eyes was real. Finally, they left. But not before the father handed me his business card. "When she comes to her senses, have her call us. And young man, you might want to think about who you're protecting. Our daughter has a history of making impulsive decisions that put her in danger. After they left, I sat at the desk, staring at the business card. The company name meant nothing to me, but I could tell from the design and quality that these people had money. Serious money. Around noon, Katie came downstairs. She looked like she hadn't slept. They were here, weren't they? She asked, sitting down across from the desk. Your parents? Yeah. About 3 hours ago. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. What did you tell them? Nothing. Said I couldn't give out guest information. Thank you. She opened her eyes, and I could see tears forming. I know this seems crazy. I know you probably think I'm some spoiled rich kid running away from responsibility. I don't think that, I said quietly. But I'll admit, I'm confused. They seemed really worried about you. She laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. They're worried about their investment. Not about me. Do you know what it's like to be treated like a business asset your entire life? Every decision, every friendship, every relationship evaluated based on how it affects the family company? I shook my head. My problems were different. Money problems, sure. But at least I'd always been free to make my own choices. They want me to marry someone, she continued. A business partner's son. They've had it planned since I was 16. I met him exactly 3 times before they announced our engagement party. 3 times. And when I said no, when I told them I didn't love him and barely knew him, they acted like I was being childish, like love was something silly and unnecessary. So you ran. So I ran, she confirmed. I withdrew money from my personal account, the one they don't control, packed a bag, and drove until I found this place. I just need time to think, to figure out my next move without them pressuring me every second. I wanted to help her, but I also knew this situation was way above my pay grade. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I have an idea, and I'm going to need your help. She looked at me seriously. How would you like to make $5,000? I actually laughed. Doing what? I'm not doing anything illegal. Nothing illegal, I promise. In 2 weeks, there's a family dinner. The engagement announcement dinner. I want to show up with someone, prove to them that I've moved on, that their plan isn't going to work, someone they would never approve of. Someone who makes it clear, I'm making my own choices. I'm making my own choices. You want me to be your fake boyfriend. Exactly. One dinner. A few hours of your time. You get $5,000. And I get my family off my back long enough to figure out my life. It was insane. Completely insane. But I thought about my mom's medical bills sitting on my kitchen counter. I thought about the loan payment on my truck that was due next week. I thought about how long it would take me to save $5,000 working 2 jobs. What would I have to do? Just show up. Be yourself. Hold my hand, maybe. They'll do all the work of disapproving. Trust me. You won't have to act much. I should have said no. Every logical part of my brain was screaming at me to walk away from this mess. But there was something about Katie, about the desperation in her eyes mixed with determination, that made me want to help her. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll do it. The relief on her face was immediate. Really? You mean it? Yeah, but we need to set some ground rules. I'm not lying to your parents about anything. If they ask me direct questions, I'm going to be honest. And if this gets too weird or uncomfortable, I'm out. Deal. She stuck out her hand, and we shook on it. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it, and felt my blood run cold. It was a photo of my truck in the parking lot, taken from somewhere in the woods nearby. Below it, a message. Tell Katie her father wants to talk. We can make things difficult for both of you. I showed her the phone. Her face went pale. They hired someone to watch the place, she whispered. I should have known they would. Katie, what exactly did you get me into? She looked at me, and I could see she was genuinely scared. There's something else I need to tell you. Something about why they really want me back. And you're going to think it sounds completely insane. Katie stood up from the desk and looked around nervously. Not here. Can we go somewhere private? Your apartment, maybe? I hesitated. Bringing her to my place felt like crossing a line. But the look on her face told me this was serious. Okay. Follow me. I lived in a small apartment above the lodge's garage. It wasn't much. Just one room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. But it was mine. Katie sat on the old couch while I made coffee, neither of us speaking until the cups were in our hands. My family isn't just wealthy, she started. They're connected. Politics, business, media. My grandfather basically built half the companies in the state. When I say they want me to marry this guy, it's not just about romance or even business. It's about power. I sipped my coffee and waited for her to continue. The man they want me to marry, his family controls pharmaceutical companies, big ones. My family wants access to their distribution networks and patents. If I marry him, our families merge companies, and suddenly they're worth billions instead of millions. I'm literally just a contract to them. But you're an adult, I said. They can't force you to marry anyone. You'd think so, right? But here's where it gets complicated. She set down her coffee cup and looked me straight in the eye. I have a trust fund, $20 million that I get access to when I turn 25, which is in 3 months. Unless what? Unless I get married before then. If I marry, I get the money immediately. But it goes into a joint account with my husband. They've structured it so that if I don't marry who they want, they'll find legal ways to delay the trust or tie it up in court for years. I've seen them do it to my cousin who tried to fight them. I let out a low whistle. That's messed up. It gets worse. Last month, I found out something I wasn't supposed to know. My father's company is being investigated for fraud. Something about illegal drug trials and falsified research data. If the investigation goes public, the company crashes. But if I marry into the pharmaceutical family before the news breaks, they can absorb the company, hide the evidence, and my father avoids prison. The weight of what she was saying hit me. This wasn't just about a rebellious daughter anymore. This was serious. Possibly criminal stuff. So you running away, I said slowly. It's not just about your happiness. It's about stopping them from using you to cover up crimes. Exactly. If I can avoid the marriage for 3 more months, I get my trust fund clean, and I can disappear for real. Start my own life somewhere they can't reach me. But they're desperate now. That's why they're pushing so hard. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. Last chance. Room 7. 1 hour. Come alone, or we involve local police with false charges. I showed it to Katie. They're threatening to frame you for something. They will too, she said quietly. They've done it before. My father once had a business rival arrested for tax evasion that turned out to be completely manufactured. By the time the guy was cleared, his reputation was destroyed. We need to call the actual police, I said, reaching for my phone. And tell them what? That my rich parents want me to come home? That someone took a picture of your truck? We don't have proof of anything illegal. My word against theirs, and trust me, they always win that fight. She had a point, but I didn't like feeling trapped. Okay, so what's your plan? You can't hide here forever. Katie stood up and started pacing. What if we turned this around? What if instead of hiding, we went public? I've been documenting everything. I have emails, text messages, recorded conversations where my father talks about the investigation. I was saving it for after I got my trust fund, but maybe we use it now. Use it how? I have a friend who works for a newspaper, not one of the ones my family controls. If I give her the story, everything goes public. The fraud investigation, the forced marriage, all of it. My parents lose their leverage because everyone knows what they're doing. But that's dangerous, I said. If your father's really involved in criminal stuff, he's not going to just let you expose him. I know. That's why I need help. That's why I need you. She stopped pacing and looked at me. I know I'm asking a lot. You didn't sign up for any of this. If you want out, I understand. I can give you the $5,000 anyway, and disappear. I thought about it. Really thought about it. This was way more complicated than I'd imagined. Getting involved could bring serious trouble to my doorstep. But I also thought about Katie. About how scared she looked when she walked into the lodge. About how the system was designed to keep people like her trapped. I'm not taking the money, I said finally. But I'll help you anyway. Kennedmark, why? You barely know me. I shrugged. Because it's the right thing to do. And because my mom always taught me that when someone's drowning, you don't ask for their life story before you throw them a rope. Katie's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We need a plan. When's this family dinner? 2 weeks from Saturday. Okay. So, we have 14 days to make them believe we're together, gather whatever evidence we can, and figure out how to go public without putting you in danger. Easy. Right? She actually laughed. Piece of cake. We spent the next few hours planning. Katie would stay at the lodge but move rooms every few days to make it harder to track her. I'd keep working my normal shifts but would be her contact with the outside world. She couldn't use her credit cards anymore since they could be traced, so I'd help her get supplies with cash. The hardest part was figuring out how to make our fake relationship look real. If her parents hired someone to watch us, they needed to see us spending time together naturally. We should go into town, Katie suggested. Get coffee, walk around, act like a normal couple. Let whoever's watching see that I'm not coming back willingly. Won't that make things worse? Maybe. But if they think I'm serious about someone else, they might give up on the marriage idea and try a different approach. It buys us time. The next day, we put the plan into action. We drove into the small town about 20 minutes from the lodge. Katie wore sunglasses and a baseball cap, trying to look casual. But I could tell she was nervous. We walked through the farmer's market, holding hands, because we figured someone was definitely watching. It felt strange at first, her small hand in mine, but after a while, it started to feel almost natural. We bought fresh bread from a local baker, sampled cheese from a dairy farm, and even laughed at a terrible joke one of the vendors told. For a few hours, it was easy to forget why we were really there. Katie relaxed, her smile becoming genuine instead of forced. She told me about places she'd traveled, books she loved, dreams she had for the future once she was free from her family's control. I want to teach, she said as we sat on a bench overlooking the mountains. History, maybe, or literature. Something where I can help people learn and grow without someone telling me it's not profitable enough. You'd be good at that, I said, and I meant it. She looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. You know what's funny? In the past 2 days, I've felt more like myself than I have in years, and it's because of you. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Not a text this time, but an actual call, same unknown number. I answered, putting it on speaker so Katie could hear. Time's up, a man's voice said. Katie needs to come home. Tonight. Or we start making things very uncomfortable for both of you. Who is this? I demanded. Someone who gets paid to solve problems. You're a problem. She's a problem. I suggest you stop being problems. The line went dead. Katie and I looked at each other. The peaceful afternoon was over. Whatever was coming next, it was coming fast. We rushed back to the lodge, both of us silent during the drive. My mind was racing through possibilities. None of them good. When we got to the parking lot, I noticed a black car I didn't recognize parked near the entrance. That's one of my father's cars, Katie whispered. Are you sure? Positive. He has 3 of them. I've been seeing that car my entire life. We sat in my truck for a moment, trying to decide what to do. Going inside felt like walking into a trap. But we couldn't just drive away forever. Let me go in first, I said. You wait here. If anything seems wrong, drive to the police station in town. No way. We face this together. Katie, together, she repeated firmly. We walked in through the side entrance, avoiding the main lobby. David was at the front desk, and he immediately waved us over, looking worried. "There's a guy waiting in the conference room," he said quietly. "Says he's Katie's family lawyer. He's been here for an hour and refuses to leave until he talks to both of you." Katie and I exchanged glances. "Did he say what he wants?" I asked. "Just that it's important. But listen, something feels off about this whole thing. I called my cousin, who's a lawyer, and she said you don't have to talk to this guy if you don't want to." "It's okay," Katie said. "I think we need to hear what he has to say." The conference room was small, normally used for the occasional business traveler who needed space for a video call. A man in his 50s sat at the table, expensive briefcase beside him, looking completely out of place in our mountain lodge. "Miss Catherine," he said, standing as we entered. "And you must be the young man helping her. Please, sit down." We remained standing. "I prefer to stand," Katie said coldly. "What do you want?" He sighed and opened his briefcase, pulling out several documents. "Your parents have asked me to present you with an offer. A generous one, considering the circumstances. I'm not interested in any offers. Hear me out," he continued, sliding a paper across the table. "Your parents are willing to release your trust fund early, full access immediately, no strings attached. $20 million. All you have to do is sign this agreement saying you won't pursue any legal action against the family or the company, and you'll attend one family dinner to discuss the situation calmly." Quote, I looked at the number on the paper, $20 million. That was life-changing money, complete freedom for Katie. But Katie didn't even glance at it. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Your parents realize they've been too controlling. They want to make amends. This is their way of showing good faith." "My father doesn't do good faith," Katie said. "There's something else. What aren't you telling me?" The lawyer's expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten slightly. "Fine. There is one small condition. You must sign a non-disclosure agreement about certain aspects of the family business. Standard practice for anyone receiving significant funds from a corporate family trust." "In other words," I said, finally understanding, she signs away her right to talk about the fraud investigation. The lawyer's eyes shifted to me. "I don't know what you're referring to." "Yes, you do," Katie said. "They want me to take the money and shut up about what my father's been doing. Let him continue breaking the law, as long as I get my payoff." "I wouldn't characterize it that way." "How would you characterize it?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, this looks like hush money." The lawyer closed his briefcase. "Miss Catherine, I urge you to think carefully about this offer. Your parents are being more than reasonable. If you refuse, things could become complicated. For both of you." "Is that a threat?" Katie asked. "It's a reality. Your friend here, for example. I've been looking into his background. His mother has significant medical debt. His truck has an outstanding loan. He's barely making ends meet. It would be unfortunate if those situations became worse due to unfortunate circumstances." My blood went cold. They were threatening my mom. Katie must have seen something in my face because she stepped forward, putting herself between me and the lawyer. "You tell my father that if anything happens to this man or his family, I'll go to the media with everything. Not just about the company fraud, everything. His affairs, his tax evasion, the bribes to city officials, every dirty secret I know. And I know a lot." The lawyer stood up slowly. "You're making a mistake. I've been making their mistakes my whole life. It's time I made my own." Katie's voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking. After he left, Katie collapsed into a chair. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't think they'd go after you like this." "It's not your fault," I said, even though part of me was terrified. "But we need to move faster. If they're willing to threaten my family, they're getting desperate. I'll call my friend at the newspaper tonight, tell her everything. Once it's public, they can't touch us." "Are you sure about this? $20 million is a lot to give up." Katie looked up at me with fierce determination. "Some things are more important than money. Like being able to look at yourself in the mirror. Like protecting people who've shown you kindness when they had no reason to. That evening, Katie made the call. Her friend at the newspaper was immediately interested. They arranged to meet the next day, to go over all the evidence Katie had collected. But at 3 in the morning, Katie knocked frantically on my apartment door. "They know," she said as soon as I opened it. My friend called back. Someone contacted her editor. Threatened the newspaper with legal action if they run the story. They shut it down. I pulled her inside. "Okay. We need to think. There has to be another way." "There isn't. They've blocked every route I had planned. I can't access my documents anymore. They locked me out of my cloud storage remotely. I have nothing." She looked defeated, and it broke something in me. This woman had been so strong, so determined. And now I was watching her spirit crack. "Then we go with Plan B," I said. "What Plan B?" "We make them come to us. We set up the dinner they want, but on our terms. Public place. Lots of witnesses. We record everything. Get them to admit what they're doing. Then we don't need evidence we already have. We create new evidence." Katie stared at me. "That's crazy. You have a better idea?" She thought for a moment, then slowly shook her head. "Actually, that might work. My father's biggest weakness is his ego. If he thinks he's winning, if he thinks he can control the situation, he'll say anything. So we let him think he's winning. Until we flip the board on him," Katie finished. We spent the rest of the night planning every detail. The location, the timing, what we'd say, how we'd get them to reveal their true intentions. It was risky, maybe even dangerous. But it was all we had left. As the sun came up, Katie looked at me with exhausted but hopeful eyes. "Why are you doing this? Really, you could walk away right now." I thought about all the reasons. The money at first, sure. Then the sense that this was the right thing to do. But sitting there with her, watching the morning light come through the window, I realized it was something else too. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about helping a stranger, I said quietly, and started being about protecting someone I care about. Katie didn't say anything, but she reached out and took my hand. We sat there together as the sun rose, knowing that everything would come to a head soon, and hoping we were ready for it. The dinner was set for Friday night at the historic Grand Valley restaurant, right in the middle of town where plenty of people would see us. Katie had agreed to her father's terms, but we'd added our own condition. The meeting would be in public, not at their private estate. Her father agreed immediately, which should have been our first warning sign. I borrowed a suit from my cousin. It didn't fit perfectly, but Katie assured me I looked fine. She wore a simple black dress. Professional, but not fancy. We were trying to look like a real couple, not like we were putting on a show. On the drive to the restaurant, Katie was quiet. I'd hidden my phone in my jacket pocket. Recording app already running. Katie had a backup recorder in her purse. We were as prepared as we could be. "Whatever happens," she said as we pulled into the parking lot. "Thank you. For everything. It's not over yet. I know. But I wanted to say it anyway, just in case." The restaurant was beautiful. All dark wood and soft lighting. Katie's parents were already there, seated at a private table in the back. Her father stood as we approached, a practiced smile on his face. "Katie, sweetheart, thank you for coming." He completely ignored me. Her mother was cooler, assessing us both with sharp eyes. We sat, and immediately a waiter appeared with menus and wine. The whole thing felt surreal, like we were performing in a play where only Katie and I knew the real script. "Let's not waste time," her father said after the waiter left. "Katie, you've made your point. You're an adult, you want independence. We hear you. We're prepared to give you everything you want, everything except my freedom to make my own choices," Katie said calmly. "Don't be dramatic. We're not asking for your freedom. We're asking for you to be reasonable." He finally looked at me. "Young man, I'm sure you mean well, but you must understand that you're out of your depth here. My daughter is accustomed to a certain lifestyle. Can you provide that?" "Respectfully, sir, I don't think Katie needs me to provide anything. She's capable of taking care of herself." Her mother made a small noise that might have been a laugh or a scoff. How refreshing. Katie, is this really what you want? To struggle financially with someone who works at a mountain lodge? I work at a mountain lodge too right now, Katie replied, and I've been happier in the past 2 weeks than I've been in years. That was true, actually. Despite everything, despite the stress and fear, I'd seen Katie laugh more, relax more, be more herself than I imagined she'd been in a long time. Her father's smile faded. Fine. Let's dispense with the pleasantries. Katie, you're being selfish and short-sighted. Your marriage to Thomas was about securing both families' futures. You're throwing away not just your own opportunities, but everyone's. You mean I'm refusing to be your get-out-of-jail card? Katie said quietly. The table went silent. Her mother's eyes widened slightly. Her father's face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about, he said carefully. Yes, you do. I know about the investigation. I know about the falsified drug trials. I know you need Thomas's family's company to absorb yours before the news goes public. Her father leaned back, and for the first time, he looked genuinely angry instead of just disappointed. Who told you about that? Does it matter? What matters is that you were willing to use me to cover up criminal activity. Your own daughter. Criminal is a strong word. We cut some corners in research timelines. That's all. It's business. People take those medications, I said, unable to stay quiet. People trust that drug companies are telling the truth about their testing. If you falsified trials, people could be hurt. Nobody asked for your input, her father snapped. Then to Katie. This is exactly why I didn't want you involved with someone like him. He doesn't understand how the real world works. The real world where rich people break laws and face no consequences, Katie asked. I understand that world pretty well. Actually, I grew up in it. Her mother finally spoke, her voice cold. Catherine, if you persist in this foolishness, there will be consequences. For you, and for your friend. There are already consequences, Katie said. You've had people follow us. You've threatened his family. You've used every manipulation tactic you know, and it hasn't worked. Her father pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. One phone call, and your friend's mother's medical debt gets sold to a collection agency that will make her life hell. One phone call, and the lodge where you both work has its license pulled for violations that may or may not exist. One phone call, and your access to everything you've ever known disappears. Then make the call, Katie said, and I heard the tremor in her voice but also the steel underneath. Because I'm not backing down. I'm not marrying Thomas. I'm not helping you cover up fraud. And I'm not living my life according to your rules anymore. You'll lose everything, her mother said. I'll lose money, Katie corrected. But I'll keep myself. And honestly, that's worth more than anything in your bank accounts. Her father stood up abruptly. This isn't over. You have until Monday to come to your senses. After that, we stop being nice. They left without another word, leaving Katie and me sitting at the table alone. The waiter cautiously approached, looking confused about whether we were staying. Can we have the check, please? I said quietly. Outside, in my truck, Katie finally broke. She started crying, hard sobs that shook her whole body. I didn't say anything, just held her hand while she let it all out. I thought I was ready, she said between sobs. I thought I was strong enough. You were incredibly strong in there. I'm scared. They're going to come after you because of me. Your mom, your job, everything. It's not fair to you. Let me worry about that, I said. Right now, let's focus on what we do next. We drove back to the lodge in silence. But when we got there, David ran out to meet us, looking panicked. The police were here, he said. They had a warrant. They searched Katie's room. What? For what? I demanded. Stolen property. Katie's parents filed a report claiming she took jewelry worth $500,000 when she left. They found a necklace in her room that matches the description. Katie's face went white. I don't have any jewelry. I left everything behind. They planted it. They had to have planted it. The police want you to come to the station tomorrow morning, David continued. They said if you don't show up voluntarily, they'll issue a warrant for your arrest. Everything was falling apart. Katie's parents had played us perfectly. The public dinner was just a distraction while they set up their real move. We spent that night trying to figure out what to do. Katie could run, but that would make her look guilty. She could face the charges, but with her parents' lawyers and connections, who knew how it would play out? Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. You should have taken the money, a man's voice said. Katie's father. Now things get ugly. For both of you. We have recordings, I said. From dinner. Of you admitting to the fraud. He laughed. You think that matters? I have lawyers who eat people like you for breakfast. By the time they're done with you, you'll wish you'd never met my daughter. Maybe, I said, but you're forgetting something. What's that? I don't have anything to lose. You do. Katie can walk away from your money, your name, everything. She already has. But you? If this becomes public, you lose everything. Your company, your reputation, possibly your freedom. Silence on the other end. So here's what's going to happen, I continued, surprised by my own boldness. You're going to drop the charges. You're going to release Katie's trust fund with no strings attached. And you're going to leave both of us alone. Or tomorrow morning, I'm walking into every news station in the state with our recordings and everything Katie knows about your business dealings. You're bluffing. Try me. More silence. Then, you have until Monday. If Katie comes home, apologizes, and agrees to at least meet with Thomas, I'll consider dropping the charges. That's my final offer. He hung up. Katie looked at me with wide eyes. What did we just do? Honestly, I'm not sure. But we're all in now. The weekend was tense. We avoided the police by staying at a friend of David's cabin in the mountains, off the grid and out of reach. We spent the time organizing everything we had, preparing for whatever came next. On Sunday night, Katie's phone rang. It was Thomas, the man she was supposed to marry. I need to talk to you, he said, alone. It's important. We debated for an hour, but finally agreed to meet him at a coffee shop Monday morning. Public place, early enough that plenty of people would be around. Thomas looked nothing like I'd expected. He wasn't some slick business type. He was actually pretty normal looking, wearing jeans and looking exhausted. I'm not here to convince you to marry me, he said immediately as he sat down. I need you to know that. Then why are you here? Katie asked. Because I just found out what my father and yours have been planning. And it's worse than you know. He pulled out his laptop. They're not just covering up one fraud investigation. They're planning to release a new drug they know doesn't work properly. It passed initial trials, but the long-term data shows serious side effects. They buried the data and plan to release it anyway, because they've already spent hundreds of millions developing it. He turned the laptop toward us. Charts, emails, internal memos. All of it damning. If this drug goes to market, Thomas continued, people will die. Not immediately, but over time. And our fathers know it. Why are you telling us this? I asked. Because I'm not my father. I don't want any part of this. And honestly, Katie, I never wanted to marry you either. I've been trying to figure out how to get out of this whole mess. So, we work together, Katie said slowly. Exactly. You have your evidence. I have mine. Together, it's enough to not only stop the marriage and get you your freedom, but to actually hold them accountable. The three of us spent the next hour going through everything. Thomas had access to files Katie never could have gotten. He had inside information about meetings, decisions, the whole corrupt system. By lunchtime, we had a plan. A real one, with evidence that couldn't be dismissed or buried. Tuesday morning, we walked into the state attorney general's office with everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence we'd collected. Thomas came with us, ready to testify against his own father if needed. The investigation moved fast after that. With an insider cooperating and hard evidence, There was no way to cover it up. Within a week, both companies were raided. Katie's father and Thomas's father were both arrested. The charges were dropped against Katie immediately once the planted jewelry scheme came to light. 3 months later, Katie got her trust fund. Not just the original $20 million, but additional money from settlements once everything was sorted out legally. She immediately donated half of it to organizations fighting pharmaceutical fraud and corruption. She used the rest to start a foundation helping people escape controlling families and situations. She also went back to school, finally pursuing the teaching degree she'd always wanted. As for me and Katie, that's the complicated part. We'd gotten so close during everything that happened. But we both knew our relationship had started in crisis, in fear and adrenaline. We needed to figure out who we were when we weren't running or fighting or scared. We decided to take things slow, really slow. Katie got an apartment near the university where she was studying. I stayed at the lodge but started taking some business classes online, thinking about maybe opening my own place someday. We talked every day, video calls, texts, visits on weekends. It was normal and healthy, and nothing like how we'd started. 1 year after that night, she walked into the lodge. We had our first real date. Not fake, not for show, not to prove anything to anyone. Just dinner and a movie. Like regular people. "Can you believe it's been a year?" she asked as we walked back to her apartment. "Honestly, sometimes it feels like a dream." Did all that really happen? It happened. We have the scars to prove it. She held up her hand, showing a small scar from when she'd cut herself on broken glass during one of our more panicked moments. "Do you regret any of it?" I asked. She stopped walking and turned to face me. "Not for a second. Everything I have now, everything I am now." It started with that decision to walk into a random lodge during a rainstorm. Best impulsive decision I ever made. Even the one bed, no rules comment? She laughed. "Especially that. I mean, it got your attention, didn't it?" It definitely did that. We stood there on the quiet street, and she kissed me. A real kiss. Not for show. Not because we were pretending. Just because she wanted to. "So," she said afterward, "what do you think? Ready for part 2 of this adventure? The boring, normal, healthy relationship part?" "Sounds perfect," I said. "Though knowing us, it probably won't stay boring for long." She smiled. "Probably not. But at least now we'll face whatever comes together. For real this time." And we did. The next chapters of our story weren't dramatic or dangerous. They were just life. Her graduation. My new business. Moving in together. Her teaching her first class. My first successful season running a mountain adventure company. Sometimes her family tried to reach out, but she'd built strong boundaries. Her mother eventually came around, and they built a careful, limited relationship. Her father, she never spoke to again. Thomas became a good friend to both of us. He'd testified against his father and lost his inheritance, but he said it was worth it to sleep at night. Last I heard, he was working for a nonprofit, investigating corporate corruption. The story of what happened made national news for a while. Katie and I gave one interview together, then refused all others. We didn't want to be famous for surviving. We just wanted to live. 5 years later, when I asked Katie to marry me, it was nothing like the dramatic proposal her parents would have demanded. Just us, on a hiking trail near the lodge where we met, with no one around but the mountains and the sky. "Are you sure?" she asked, laughing and crying at the same time. "I come with a lot of baggage." "We all do," I said. "But we also come with a lot of strength. And love. And apparently a talent for getting out of impossible situations." "True. We are pretty good at that." She said yes. And I placed a simple ring on her finger. Nothing expensive or fancy. Just something we picked out together that she actually liked. Our wedding was small. Friends. David from the lodge. Thomas. Some of Katie's cousins who'd supported her. My mom. Healthy now, and crying happy tears the whole time. No parents on Katie's side. But she said she didn't miss them. I have family, she told me the night before the wedding. I found it, built it, chose it. That's better than being born into it. So that's the story of how a woman walked into a mountain lodge on a rainy night, said something that made no sense at the time, and changed my entire life. It's messy and complicated, and not always pretty, but it's real. And somehow, against all odds, it worked out. These days, Katie teaches history at a local high school. She loves it. And her students love her. I run adventure tours in the mountains. We live in a house we built together, and some nights we still sit up talking about how crazy it all was. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd gone to a different lodge that night? She asked me recently. All the time, I admitted. But I'm glad you didn't. Me too. Though, you know what's funny? I wasn't even planning to stop there. I was going to drive all night, get as far away as possible, but then it started raining so hard I couldn't see, and I saw the lights of the lodge, and something just told me to stop. Fate? I suggested. Or just luck. Either way, I'll take it. Looking back, I think about how close we both came to missing this. If she'd driven past, if I'd refused to help, if either of us had given up when things got hard. Life is like that sometimes, balanced on tiny decisions that could go either way, but we made the right choices, even when they were scary. Especially when they were scary. And now we get to live with the consequences of those choices, which turned out to be pretty wonderful. The other day, a young woman checked into Katie's Foundation's emergency shelter. She was running from a controlling family, scared and alone, with no idea what to do next. Katie sat with her for hours, listening to her story, helping her make a plan. When she came home that night, she told me about it. I remember being that scared, she said. I remember thinking there was no way out. But you found one. We found one, she corrected. I couldn't have done it alone. Neither could I. That's the truth of it. Neither of us could have faced what we faced alone. But together, we were stronger than we knew. Strong enough to stand up to powerful people. Strong enough to risk everything. Strong enough to build something real and lasting from the chaos. Sometimes I still work shifts at the lodge, just for fun, and to help David out. Sometimes people walk in looking lost or scared or desperate. When they do, I try to remember what Katie taught me. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves kindness. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is help someone you barely know. Because you never know when that random stranger might change your life, or when you might change theirs. And that's the real lesson from all of this. It's not about the dramatic showdowns or the dangerous situations or even the happy ending. It's about showing up for people. Being brave when it matters. Making the hard choice even when the easy one is right there. Katie walked into that lodge and said, "One bed, no rules," because she was testing me. Testing if I'd see her as a person or an opportunity. I'm glad I passed that test. I'm glad she took a chance on me. I'm glad we both decided that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds seem impossible. These days, our life is beautifully, wonderfully boring. We pay bills and argue about whose turn it is to do dishes and plan vacations we sometimes can't afford. It's normal and mundane and absolutely perfect. But every once in a while, when a storm rolls in over the mountains, Katie and I sit on our porch and watch the rain. And we remember that night a stranger walked in out of the storm and changed everything. Think we'd do it all again? She asks sometimes. In a heartbeat, I always answer. You? Without question. Though maybe with a slightly better plan next time. We laugh because we both know that no amount of planning could have prepared us for what we went through. Life doesn't work that way. You can't plan for everything. Sometimes, you just have to trust yourself, trust the people around you, and hope that when the moment comes, you'll be brave enough to do the right thing. We were. And that made all the difference.